Welcome to the third video in the four-part series for Blanket Women Initiative in Fort St. James. My name is Aurora and I'm with the Fireweed Women's Collective. Today I want to talk about women and matriarchal societies. I want to talk about how women support and weave a really important part in communities and why they are celebrated and should be celebrated. And a lot of you will say, well, they are. And of course we are. We're wonderful. Just kidding. So, when you look at a patriarchal society like we have in Western culture, we have a patriarchal society, which means that it's run and operated by men's ideals. Through colonialism, it was, you might say, well, that's the Queen. The Queen was the one who colonized and created Canada, so of course we're a matriarchal society. No, that is not the case. We're not a matriarchal society. Things run and operate through a man's lens and through men's not dictatorship, but leadership. It can feel like a dictatorship sometimes. But anyway, so women are an important fabric for a functional society because women birth the babies. Women are the nurturers for love and connection for men and women. So everyone comes from a woman. The man is there as a really integral part of that equation as well. But this particular video is centered on women and how we lift a community. So when you look at developed societies, there's great reason that we need military force and we need industries run by strong leadership of men. Absolutely. They create a really important container that's built that allows us to thrive in these developed societies and infrastructures. And because of the value system that we place, like I talked about in the last video, those ideals can be sometimes put more high on the pedestal list of what's required and what's wanted, right? So women's ideals that are raising a child might not be looked at as beneficial, even though they're so beneficial. Well, why isn't she working? She could just put that kid in daycare. She can be part of the patriarchal web and be functional, and then we'll value her. We'll value that because we see with what we're told to value or what we accept and choose to value. And so that is placed. So where are we not seeing what is valuable within the other aspect and the matriarchal aspect? Because the matriarchal aspect is still present, even if it's not the one that is at the most forethought of our capitalistic structure. The matriarchal aspect is still always there, no matter what. And if it wasn't, there would just be men here. And even with men, they have matriarchal attributes. Men are nurturers too. This is not a this and that black and white thing. It's shades of gray. Gray. So, men can have feminine attributes. Women can have masculine attributes. Sometimes women are choosing to be very much successful in a patriarchal structure and system of things. And that's great. I'm the type of feminist that thinks all women should do whatever they feel like they are driven to do. But let's look at some of those things of why we do that. So a woman in a society is the creator of the images that we see in terms of what is maternal. So what is maternal? Nurturing, supporting, having emotion. Women have more emotion and men have more action. And that's why both are really, really important for functional structure. In communities where women are honored for their contribution within that emotional mindset, within that emotional base, then it is known that that fire that she's able to create through her emotion of saying, hey, this is wrong, no, we need to take care of this, then can guide the action of the men. And instead, emotion has not been taught in our schools, right, until recently, like the last couple of years. So 150 years of not having emotional efficacy, emotional intelligence, has created um, this division in what's valued and division in how women are valued in the community. So emotion is super important, and emotional intelligence is, because we all have emotion just like we all have taste buds, right? And so to suppress or hide any of those emotion, or to say, hey, you're too emotional, you're being a woman, are you on your period, like all those kinds of things and those thoughts are not going to help a society at all, because a healthy basis in what emotion is and how to work with emotion and not against it will create more fluidity. It'll have less addictions, it'll have less mental health issues, it'll have less abuse and domestic violence cycles keeping on going. So this is one of the most imperative parts of the whole video series, is to understand that emotional intelligence has not been offered to us, and there's a reason for it historically. So when men came back from the war, World War II, they had PTSD, and there was just really not that much understanding how to deal with PTSD. And so everyone was taught to kind of like tiptoe around and not express too much emotion, not get the men triggered in their emotion, and really not knowing how to deal with it. And so things were silenced, things were dysfunctional. Obviously, there was also shaming and deep belittlement for emotion within the Catholic wave onto residential schools, and oppression of Indigenous peoples as well, which created deep barriers into knowing how to fully express the emotional needs of a human being, and to teach that to the young people. And so on all sides, there hasn't been an understanding of emotional regulation. And emotional regulation is, again, the fire that creates, that if it's dysregulated, creates all the other smoke. So emotional regulation, the ability to know and regulate the emotions, to come back to who a person is, and find that kind of set point within their own cycle of emotion, and not have shame for it, not shame one another for it, definitely not shame women for what they bring as emotional beings. And so in cultures that understand that an emotional being is an asset, then they're able to express those gifts as women. And I'm not saying all women are emotional more, and some men are emotional more. Again, it's not black and white, it's gray. But there are reasons why we don't value emotion, and that they get silenced at a board meeting. Well, maybe that's where emotion should be. Or there's ways that emotion are more valued in certain contexts and places than others, or certain emotions are only allowed. So in psychology, I learned, like in Western culture, men it's like they're allowed anger as an output, but they're not allowed any of the other ones, or else they're you could name a whole bunch of names, whatever you learned, and share stories about that. Share stories of how you've learned what is acceptable and what is not acceptable in terms of emotion. But maybe men aren't allowed to show that they're weak. They're not allowed to show that they're vulnerable. So they output it in anger, because anger is still that hegemony that I talked about in the last video, that they're allowed to only show those ones. And if they show the others, they will get what? They will get socially ostracized, shamed, ridiculed. Well, the bottleneck that's held in men is because of this certain factor. The bottleneck that's held in men is based on the fact that that emotional intelligence isn't there. So it perpetuates the abuse cycle. So that's one huge fact of why we need to become more emotionally intelligent, expressive, vulnerable in our emotion. All right? And that is worthy work to do, because it has a ripple effect for the whole community, and men are an important fabric in the community. And so men having an important connection to the emotion is really important, and oftentimes women help men with that in in a way that's safe, hopefully, but sometimes because if women have bought that story, that men can only show anger else they're weak, well then they're going to show to the men, hey, you can't act weak, and then the men are going to shut down more because they need safety in their expression of emotion, right? So this is all relatable to everyone because it ties in to all of our dynamics, right? Like it ties into why people might be more at high risk for suicide. They don't feel like they can reach out. Men aren't accessing services and mental wellness services. They're not coming out because they're scared of that dialogue that we keep going in Fort St. James. We keep it going, but we can choose not to. And this work that needs to happen with this Blanket Women Initiative is all about being safe to unlearn and unpack and feel it, to heal it. Be willing to name what the emotions are. Be willing to say, this is my story and this made me feel this way. That's the only way that we can solve some of the biggest problems that are here. And we're either solving the problem or we're being part of it. So which one is it going to be? All right, now let's switch tiers to the women. So in psychology class, there was also the aspect of women that they're allowed all the emotions except anger. So what happens when there's an angry woman? She's told she's crazy. She's told like, oh, she's just outbursting. That is out there. So there's men getting the normative message that they can have only anger and not the other ones, or they can funnel all that emotion under the iceberg into anger, because really it comes from hurt, sadness, disappointment, grief, like whatever it might be, and funnel it into anger. And then there's women, they're allowed all of them except for anger. So if they choose to have an anger response, which everyone has anger, just like everyone has all the taste buds, then they're cast out as being like, whoa, she's crazy. And we've all heard people go, oh, she's crazy, when she probably has every right to have whatever experience she has and feelings that she has that have contributed to that angry response. And there's reason. It is a grave dysfunction to not get angry in a situation that should make you angry. Because if that's silenced and suppressed, when there's something that should make you angry, like that would make like our ancestors angry, different people angry, but we've become so brainwashed not to get angry at rape, not to get angry at violence, not to get angry that, somebody is imposing their will and dominance and control on another person or onto the earth or onto whatever situation. If we're like stuffing that anger because we're scared of it, then that is also a dysfunction that creates a bottleneck, right? And the bottleneck, it creates pressure and constriction, which then creates all these other problems that we see in different ways, like dysregulation, addictions, those kinds of things are to numb one's situation because you just don't know how to handle and cope and deal with overwhelm, right? And so this video series is on the beauty of why women are so important to the fabric of community, but I had to talk about emotional regulation because women have a strong premise in emotion. Do you know why? No, I'll tell you why. The women were able to be in circles for like a lot of cultures, and I hate just universalizing it without naming specific ones, but I'm going to. So in a lot of cultures, women sat in circles, the men went out, they hunted, they brought it back, they were productive in their ways, and women were in circles. They gained a lot of emotional intelligence and efficacy because they were sharing stories and they were sharing in those ways, right? And men are action-oriented and very dominant in the left brain, and women are very emotional oriented and dominant in the right brain. And so when we look at an imbalance within our community structure around emotional intelligence, and what we need to heal collectively as a community is that emotional intelligence, we really need to lift those assets that women can contribute and go, hey man, that's a great value. Let's value that again. Let's not just value the economy in the patriarchal driven world. Though they can equally matter, and they do equally matter, but it hasn't been that, right? It's been stifle this. Let's not talk about what's uncomfortable. Let's not talk about what we want to address because we don't know how to, or we were silenced as children when we had an emotional need. Oh, just pick yourself up and don't cry about it. You got to be tough in this world. Well, there was a reason that narrative was sold after the Great Depression. Yeah, you wanted to strive and be tough, but look at what being tough has gotten us. It's gotten us to be actually less tough and less, because the more emotionally intelligent you are, actually the more stronger you are. The more vulnerable you can be and open and real and honest, the more courage you have within that. That's actually strength. Because if it was easy, all the people would be doing it, right? All the people would be facing their emotions that are creating confusion and really shut down depression and anxiety. And that this isn't just in Port St. James, this is in the Western world. Like, why is it the statistics are crazy high, right? And I've personally been touched by loss of people who've had addictions and overdoses and other things. Like, I've been touched by that, and this is a conversation I'm passionate about because of that deep loss and pain that many of us are touched by. There isn't someone that really isn't touched by this. And so I would say that it's worth it to talk about this and talk about what it means to get more emotionally intelligent and be able to unlearn and relearn those patterns that don't allow that. And for us to have the difficult conversations, and for us to feel it, to heal it, for us to feel this scary yet liberating thing, you know, to bring a common language to it brings understanding. And to share stories with one another that often are very relatable, no matter who brings the story and what it is. That brings clarity. And to start to say, hey, like, we are a community and everyone matters, that starts to bring hope. And then that hope shines and helps to create more resiliency for those that are the most vulnerable and for those women who really need that hope, especially right now. So let's lift and see the value in women that contribute to all of society. And let's lift and value emotional efficacy, emotional effectiveness, emotion. And that right there, that is what women have the heart of the community. That is the matriarch. And I believe that this community is wise to respond to this and will. Thank you.